Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from British Columbia and from downtown Prince George. Where is Prince George? For all those people watching from around the world, Prince George is in British Columbia, obviously, and it's about 500 miles north, or 750 kilometers north of Vancouver. Interesting enough about British Columbia, it's a big province. It's about 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers long from north to south, from east to west. Prince George right in the middle. And beautiful day here, beautiful summer day in Prince George. And today an interesting guest, an important guest, it's Stuart Cohen. Hi Stuart, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, honored to have you. Where are you from, Stuart? Where are you located?
Right now, I live for the past 10 years in Memphis, Tennessee. Originally, I'm a Northeast guy from New York, New Jersey.
Okay. And how long have you been in Tennessee?
It'll be about 10 years this fall, and it's quite a different culture. I love it, going from the busyness of the New York area to the Mid-South. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, and then the quite active there as well, but more nature involved than you would find in the eastern seaboard, right?
Yes and no. I was always a sucker for the beach, and I'm from Long Island originally, John, and surrounded by water on three sides pretty much. And so you'd always find me going to parks and being at the beach or being out in the water. Now, while we're not surrounded by water here in Memphis, we're landlocked. We've got the river.
Yeah.
We've got lakes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So I still have my outdoor time.
Yeah, and I like that too because I'm originally from Holland. I was born in Holland in 1940, actually. So it makes me 82, November 1940, it makes me 82 and a half. 82 and a half years young, actually. And, and then I came to Prince George, or to Canada, when I was 24. Why Canada? Well, we were liberated by the Canadians in 1945. I was 5 years old. It made such an impression on me that I always knew I would go to the land of my heroes. And I wanted to go when I was 17. My parents wouldn't let me then. Then I was drafted into the Air Force, Special Forces actually. And I wanted to be a flyer, but no, they put me in Special Forces. Don't ask me why. In any event, I was there for 2 years and then worked in the lumber industry in Holland for a bit and then finally left when I was 24. That's kind of what I did,
So you did the dream. You had the vision and you lived it.
I lived it. I lived it. I had two dreams. The one dream was to go to Canada, and then my dad was involved in the lumber industry, and my grandfather was a master carpenter. And I loved lumber and anything to do with lumber, but I was not very good in school academically. I failed grade 3. Who fails grade 3, really? And then I failed grade 7 3 times. So I kind of felt I was a failure in Holland. And Holland is always that if you want to get a job and support a family, the first thing they said, okay, you want a job, fine. What's your education? And where are your diplomas? Well, I don't have any. And so I kind of felt I had been a failure. And then, so I wanted to go to Canada to just kind of start all over again and to prove to myself that I could do it. And my dream was to build a lumber mill. So I left Holland with $150, one suitcase, 3 books, and then a bunch of little other things, but those were the main things. And then wanted to go to British Columbia and start a lumber mill. But I couldn't speak, I didn't speak any English. I didn't have a job. I didn't know a soul. So by the time I got to Vancouver, I talked to the immigration department there, And I told them what I wanted to do is build a lumber mill. I could speak some German. And he said, Prince George. Go to Prince George. That's where, it's a boom town. That's where they're building lumber mills, paper mills, and that's where the future is. And so I took the bus, 13 hours to Prince George. And then when I came off the bus here, I had $25.47. Couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. Underneath it, what it says is, that's the foundation of my life. Attitude, avoid the negative. Passion, find something you love to do. Work ethic. And so that's kind of how I started. And then started right from the bottom. Cleanup man, lumber piler, and then within 10 years I formed my own company, and now we have 3 lumber companies, and we employ about 400 people normally, and then we have 5, 6 different other companies. So that's kind of what happened. And then I was then, when I started the company, it was 19, I came here when I was 24. 10 years later, in 1975, I started my company, incorporated it, started with nothing, virtually worked as long as I could stay awake to build a lumber company, build it up from there. So then I was in my mid-30s. And then something happened when I was 57. I walked into a store here, a bookstore, and I picked up a book, and it was, I don't know why I did that, Stuart. I have no idea. I looked at the book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. And I looked at it, and it said ADHD, and I said, oh my God, that's me. And I wrote in the book in Dutch, now finally I know who I am. And then from there on in, it took me another 5 years, till I was 62, that I went to my doctor. That was a friend of the family, delivered my both daughters, and he was a friend. And even then, I was ashamed of ADHD because it's a mental disorder. I didn't know, it's stigma and all the other kind of thing. So I went to my doc, and the doc says, walked into his office, and he said, hey, John, why are you here? I said, I think I got ADHD. And he said, oh my God. Anyway, we looked at it together, did all the other kind of things. Yeah, diagnosed me as ADHD. Even then, Stuart, even then, it took me another, probably the last 6, 7, 8 years that I became more vocal about it, talk about it more. And then I gave a presentation here in 2019 at one of the major universities here of Prince George, and I got an honorary doctorate for law from the University of Northern British Columbia, where I gave a presentation about, I grew up during the Second World War. Things were very difficult for my mother, who had 3 kids. I was born in November 1940. My dad wasn't there anymore. The last time that they heard from him, he was caught in the bombing of Rotterdam, and we didn't know he was dead or alive for 5 years. And then I had a sister 1 year older, a brother 2 years older, and then the winter of 1945, what they called the hunger winter, extremely cold in Holland. A lot of kids died, a lot of old people died, and every morning, my sister, my brother, myself, we went to the schoolyards with gunny bags and picked up anything edible or burnable. And that we did it together because they would, if they caught us, they would put us in the back, but they wouldn't shoot us. And so, and then at nights we were sitting around a little stove with all the doors closed to stay warm. And then in the evenings overhead were bombers flying, daytime, nighttime bombing right over our area. And then we would go outside, not to look at it, but the fear It was better to be outside than inside. And, so it was a tough goal. And and as a result, so there you had this guy, me, when I did my presentation at the University of Northern British Columbia for my doctorates of laws, I talk about the SPD, the inner child, the effects of the after the war, PTSD, and then ADHD in combination, and saying that kind of was with me for all those years, and it changed my life, really starting in 1990, but in particular in in the years that followed, and many years. But the feel of failure was with me. Even when I built the companies that I did, I still felt I had been a failure. And it all changed with me finding the book, Driven to Distraction, about ADHD. And then I started talking about it more. Then I wrote a book about it, so I've been thinking about, I have to write a book. Not about that, I didn't even know about it then when I first started. There is this book, Driven to Distraction, or Against All Odds on this one, is that, it took me 20 years to think about it, 8 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And then I incorporated those things in the book. And then the other part about that, I more and more started talking about ADHD. I wrote this book, ADHD Unlocked. Very popular. And I know you wrote a book as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But, that this is the one that I wrote. And then I wrote another one, is that that's coming out in July. It is Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream. And that's coming out in first week in July. It's being printed as we speak. And, but so that's where I found ADHD and felt then, for all the people that have suffered through it, that I call it a superpower. And started to speak about it more, write about it more, and becoming increasingly more active in it. Even as we speak, we will be much more active on the internet, on all over the place, and are already to a certain extent, but we will expand it far beyond that. And so I call it a superpower. I couldn't have done what I did without it, and and to me, it is extremely important to share the experiences, not only with people like yourself that are in it, but there virtually is not a day, Stuart, that goes by where somebody doesn't tell me, I've never talked to anybody about this, but I have it too, kind of a thing, over and over again. And the frequency of occurrence, in my opinion, much higher than ever anticipated. But it is just now starting. That's how I feel about it. But it changed my life. But I call it, there is no question about it, a superpower.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, for every ounce of my being, for doing what you're doing, by giving it air, by talking about it, by normalizing it, by making people understand that it doesn't have to sink you. It doesn't have to separate you as you're different, you're unworthy. You can achieve bigger and better than your wildest dreams.
Exactly. And that's the whole point to it. But if I want to share with the people, for me, until I was 57, I found the book and I saw it. I still have the book that I wrote in Dutch in it because I was ashamed of it. And then for me to go to, while I'm already building a major company, I felt I was a failure, even then. And if I would go to my banker and lend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, then I would have to say, okay, banker, this is the plan, blah, 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 blah. But I have a mental disorder, ADHD. He would say, have a nice day. And I believe that now, finally, globally and around the world, we are recognizing it not as a liability, but as an asset. I've done presentations where I'm sitting giving a presentation to a group of people, where people in the group, several of them take their hands up that they either know them, they are engaged with them, or they're in their family or in their friends, where they say, damn, I wish that I had that too. So that kind of a thing. So, and that's kind of where we are. And, there is no question about it that, that this will spread further and further and further. And to interact with people like you that have their own stories like that, because I know it from, you had a rough time too, and it was not in your case until 46 that you discovered it, but it gave you a lot of issues and challenges as well.
Indeed.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, John, for inspiring me and inspiring every single human being on this planet who's hearing this and all of your other podcasts when you talk about it and read your books. I just have to put that there because the mission that you're on, I'm right behind you. So this is the mission I'm on now too. And I didn't know until you don't know until you know. It was my we weren't even married at the time. We were dating. It was our second marriage, and she has 4 boys and 2 of twins, and they were diagnosed with ADHD at 6 years old. And into our relationship, one day she looks at me, she says, Stuart, sweetheart, you ought to get tested for ADHD. And everything stopped, John, because right, it's that ADHD. That's a bad boy, bad kid, bad girl, kid thing. And yeah, I got some issues here, but I just thought that was my quirky personality. I'm a bit of a mystery. Yeah. And yeah, I'm a little extreme. I'm big energy, all these things. And I never, ever thought ADHD. Went to the doctor.
Right.
Asked me all the questions, went through all the whole testing. Yeah. And he says, yeah, you have ADHD. Now here's the kicker, John. He said, I'm going to give you a prescription. Go ahead and take these. And he didn't say, call me in the morning. The old saying, take these, call me in the morning. Right. In other words, I didn't get that sense that there was any follow-up. It was just a pill, a magic pill that was going to take away my worry, my perseverating or ruminating, my blurting, of my being, quick to judge people. And, when you feel ugly after, I can't believe I just said that, or my energy bursts, or my energy swings, the roller coaster ride of extreme highs followed by extreme lows.
Right.
So I started taking the meds. And then it wasn't until years later that I said, wait a minute, I gotta figure me out. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of having this emotional roller coaster ride. And I don't want to just take a pill. And that's when the first book I read was the same book that you read. How about that?
Driven to Distraction.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the book. And like you, because I've listened to some of your stuff and a bit of your story. Right, John? It's like, wow, they wrote a book about me. How do they know? So there's somebody else on the planet that thinks like this, that experiences this challenge, that is insatiable when it comes to, I'm an entrepreneur too. I genuflect at what you have built, this magnificent, all these business units. I've built some fun stuff. I'm blessed. And I read a second book and a third book, and I listen to podcasts. I'm like, I'm not alone. And I would imagine that's how you felt too.
Absolutely.
It's your discovery.
And then it goes further than that, Stuart, for me, and I know it will for you, and it is for you. I have to now share it with the world, and I have to talk to other people about it. Give you an example. I give my books away a lot of times. I don't even charge for them, although they're very popular. And so I did a keynote address best of here, about 100 people in the room, and about 10 or 20 people came up to me. About 4 of them had ADHD in their family. And I talk about that now more and more during my presentations. And then this other fella came up to me the night before already when I was sitting there and having dinner, waiting for my presentation the next morning. And he said to me, "Sorry, I don't want to disturb your dinner. Can you talk to me before you leave? Go to your room?" I said, "Well, sure, I'll look you up." He was sitting a little bit further up. And when I was done, I went over to him, and he said to me, "Thank you for your book, this one. My son has ADHD, and it's giving him a lot of challenges, and us as a family. We read it together, him and me." Can you believe it? That's what it is.
Beautiful.
And it happens.
That's beautiful. But what strikes me there too is that the parent was involved, was right there. And that's so important. When young people are diagnosed and they don't have an inner circle of people who understand, who will love on them and accept them and inspire them and saying, it's okay, you be you, unmask and be free to be you, be creative, rather than being put in a box. It's tough.
And it's a superpower. It leaves, that I couldn't do what I'm doing. I can do 20 things all at the same time. And if you look in my office, it looks like everything is all disorganized. But I live in that world. I love it, and that's who I am. But it's a superpower. And then the other part about it, Stuart, is I have to share it with the world. And I intend to do that. And we're going to become much more active on the web and online and on a global basis. And, because in my little world, the occurrence of ADHD has changed everything in terms of the frequency of occurrence. What I'm now saying is that everybody has to read it. Not necessarily mine, others as well in regards to this topic, because it's not only important for the people that have ADHD, it's also important for people that are slow learners or affected by trauma. I'm thinking about First Nations. It's also important for people that are living around, think about your 2 twins, sets of boys, and then your wife saying, "Hey Stuart, check it out," and that around you there are people that will have it, and therefore not you, but you in a general sense should become knowledgeable about it. If it is not within your direct family, it's in among your friends, it's in the community where you work, or you will encounter it. Become knowledgeable about it, because people that have ADHD, I'm not telling you any secrets here, are a little bit different. And once you get to know them, you get to enjoy them. But it's not, a disease or anything like that. It is the opposite. And, so that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. And I love how you're saying how important it is for everybody to read the book.
Yeah.
The workplace, human resources, people who are, management. I think, John, businesses, if there was a way to identify positions that need the skill sets, certain superpowers that we don't have all the same. For instance, I'm terrible at numbers. I know how to make money. I can't count. Terrible at numbers. However, I know as many ADHDers who they look at numbers and it's a language. They love it. They speak it. They're chemists. And so if only the workplace would embrace it and say, hey, you have ADHD? Great. Do you need any accommodations? Do you need to wear headphones at work? Not a problem. Do you need privacy? See, when I was in management, when I worked in corporate for the first 22 years of my career, for 11 companies in 22 years, I'm not very proud of, but I did. I never knew. I had no idea. And the great thing to do as a leader is to have an open door policy, John.
Yeah.
I want to be approachable. Well, let me tell you something. People walking in and interrupting my focus and my deep thought, my ADHD, oh my gosh. But this is upon reflection. I didn't know that then.
Exactly.
I know it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the other thing that I did in this book, ADHD, when I was writing it, and again with grade 3 failing and 3 times grade 7, I'm a very good writer. And then I'm the other part, I'm very good with numbers. The rest I'm not so good at. Attention, I may as well not have been in school. So when I was writing it, I do a lot of flying back and forth to the coast here, Vancouver or Victoria. I was sitting in the plane, and this fellow sits next to me, and he says, I don't know if you remember me, but we sat together last year, and you talked about you writing books, and I said, oh yeah, right, I remember it now. And he said, so we talked about that a bit, and then I said to him, I'm in the process of writing this book, ADHD Unlocked. And one of the challenges that I had when I wrote this book is that I talked about all the things. I interviewed a dozen people. I interviewed, the foreword was written by a person, her name is Tracy Lotz, a medical doctor and a surgeon, ADHD. And, and a number of other people with their stories. And I said to the person sitting next to me, I said to him, so I'm writing this other one now, and I'm nearly finished with it. And after he left out of the plane, and the following week I started thinking about it. His job was, he's Dr. Tom Romer. He is the Vice President Academic, British Columbia Institute of Technology. That was the fellow sitting next to me. And he said, I'm quite involved in similar things as to where do we go from here in terms of the learning. And I gave thought to that. The following week, for some reason or another, I was sitting in 3A. He was sitting in 1F on the other side. The plane was full. I saw him. I said, over Tom, Tom, wait at the gate before you leave the airplane. When you go off, wait for me. I need to talk to you. And he said, okay, John. And all the people said, well, what the hell is going on here? Anyway, I talked to him then because in my book, it was very well done and all those other kind of things. There was something missing as to, okay, that's good information. I like that. Okay, what are we going to do now is the question. Where do we go from here? That's what was missing. So I talked to Tom about it, and he had mentioned to me something that is called micro-certification. What is it? It is that if you go to school for 4 years, for people like us are not good at that. We want to focus on the core knowledge areas that will draw our attention. Focus on that first, develop that knowledge, add the other things later in some other form, but now you can go into the workplace and at least have already developed the core knowledge to this. It would change everything in education for ADHD, trauma-affected people, slow learners, and all the other things. Because a lot of people are not good at sitting in classes for 4 years, going on and on about stuff that is of no interest to them. Micro-certification will become part of the educational system. And I incorporated it in my book. And so that then, I said, write about it, Tom, because I need to finish the book because it's going to the printers next week, and that's what we did. And but that became a critical part of it, in my opinion. So, but it's still
I,
at its infancy right now. The rest of the world around my circle, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but it can go further than that.
I really love that. I had never heard that expression before, or that name. Thank you for introducing it to me. Why that is so important specifically for ADHDers is because we get our superpowers. We excel when we love what we're reading, when we love what we're seeing, when we love what we're hearing, when we love what we're doing. If we don't love it, it's so much more difficult, right, John, for us to focus on it if we
Absolutely.
just don't care. So giving us that freedom, we feel liberated from the stuff that is very difficult to wade through, so we can focus on what we love.
And now you can go into the workplace, micro certification is accepted, and you focus on the core issues. Add the other ones later because they become then of interest to you. But at least the core is available to you, and it would probably take only 6 months to do that. And the rest would then be added later. And I believe that's critically important.
Brilliant. I agree. Very much so. I love what I'm hearing.
So tell me a little bit more about yourself then. So you and I know that you wrote a book or writing a book, and then at the same time you now are in your family. What is your wife's name?
My wife's name is Kimberly.
Kimberly.
And as so many people like to say, yeah, so I have 4 stepsons, and I have 2 children of my own. They're all adults.
Yeah. Tell me the names. So Kimberly, you say you call her what? Kimberly?
So Kimberly, yeah. So as sometimes people like to joke around, she's definitely not ADHD.
No. Mine is neither.
Yeah. So,
and that's a good thing.
Kimberly, and then Danielle's my daughter, and I've got 2 grandbabies, 2 beautiful, beautiful, magnificent, bouncy, fun, delicious grandbabies.
Right.
My son, his name is Zachary.
Okay.
And my 4 stepchildren are Adam, Benjamin, Samuel, and Jacob.
And
we are
how old?
A 6 splendid family.
Yeah.
Oh, they range in age from 24 to
all
31.
Over the map. I always like the idea you're talking about them because they will see this podcast and then feel they are part of it, right? That's, I believe, so important.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
They're gonna enjoy that. So for me, it was years later after my diagnosis, John. I had been independent. I'm an entrepreneur now. It's going on 17 years. But I've been in the travel and hospitality space, loving it. And we share a few things in common. One of them is public speaking. So my primary income, my primary love was being on stage, keynotes, workshops, training. Love that.
Where did you get the ability to become a public speaker? Because for a lot of people, the worst fear in their life is to give presentations on it. They fear that more than death.
Yes.
So how did you get involved in there? Naturally?
John, I really think I was born with the gift of gab, the gift of being a ham. And it's part of my personality, and it all started when I was in college, way before I knew anything about the ADHD, where I was doing stuff on the radio at college, Ithaca College in upstate New York, a fabulous communication school. And I loved being on the radio. And then I said, hey, we had a pub on campus. So I said, I'm going to go buy DJ equipment and records. Back in the day, remember, we had records. Yeah. We didn't have DVDs or there were no computers. They were all records.
Right.
And I started making money playing music and talking on the mic in the pub. I would go home and I would do weddings and sweet 16s and parties. And then that microphone gave me my voice. Suddenly, little invisible Stu, because that's how I felt growing up. I felt tiny. I felt small. I felt insecure. I wasn't confident in who I was. That microphone helped me find my voice and
Yeah.
my confidence. And when I was on stage or had that, I felt I could be me.
It gave you self-confidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
So built that, and then I'm working in business, and I kept saying, "Hey, can I do that presentation? Can I speak on that? Can I do that training?" And so I would do it for the company that I was working for, so I wouldn't get paid. And then when the time came for me to go out on my own, I was let go from one of the greatest companies I'd ever worked for, a phenomenally nurturing, brilliant culture. They let me go. It was right at the recession in 2008. I said, "Stuart, now's your time." And when they let me go, that was the greatest gift they gave me, because I realized now's my time. I need to use my superpower of getting things done, doing only what I love to do, which is public speaking. I built an online company, a .com, which is still there today, called Resort for a Day, and I was on the way.
Think about my book coming out within the next 3 weeks. Finding your passion, living the dream.
Yeah.
And that's precisely, Stu, what that is about.
Yes. Yeah. When you told me the title of your book, that was my mantra on the wall.
So what happened to me is just on the speaking side, because I'm a professional speaker, I do keynote speaking, turn the clock back up to 1990, I was a basket case. I could not interact with more than 2 or 3 people at my operations, the companies, because I didn't have the confidence. And so I seldom interacted with people more than that. Then something did happen that changed everything. What is it, John?
What is it, John?
My ex-sister-in-law dragged me to Toastmasters. And I said, I don't want to go there. What are they doing there? But she said, it's good for public speaking. And I said, well, am I going to sit there and they're going to ask me a question? I don't want to do that. I don't do that. And so, anyway, I went to the Toastmasters. While I was sitting there listening to the people, then somebody said to me, and John, tell us a little bit about you. I said, oh my God, let me get out of here, right? And then I said to her after, I'll never go back there. But I did the following week. I was there for 10 years, between 2090 and 2000, or 1990 and 2000. I became a DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level you can reach inside of Toastmasters. That of Toastmasters, there are about 400,000 active Toastmasters in the world, all around the world, in different clubs. And then there are probably 4 or 5 million that have had some level of Toastmastering. And the total number of the Toastmasters that are there, less than 1%, between 0.5% and 1%, will push it as far as becoming DTMs. And so, as you look at my business card, with pride, I put on there DTM, because I'm proud of it. It changed my life. The things that changed my life is first and foremost Toastmasters. And even before we started this podcast that we are doing now, I did a 90-minute keynote presentation. And then I will do another podcast after we are done as well tonight. And that to me is totally inconsistent. If I go back, I would have never thought that would be possible. But that changed my world. So Toastmasters did. The next one, standing in that store, opening that book, different through distraction, and saying, oh my God, that is me. And that, between the war, being liberated by the Canadians, April the 12th, 1945, I knew I should go to Canada. The second one is I admired my grandfather, although I never knew him as a furniture maker, but I know the pieces and the churches that he made. And then that was my dream, to go to Canada. But the other one was that I failed in Holland, in my opinion. And I said to myself, I want to prove to me that I can do it. Just me. I'm going to start with nothing. When I came off the bus here in Prince George, I couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. I had $25.47, counted it 3 times, but I was not going to go back to Holland unless I was successful or in the box. A little bit radical, but that's how I knew how important it would be. And, and hence that between those particular things that happened, that changed my life. And to have that part of my books is basically saying to people that say, I can't do that because I'm too old. I said, I don't accept that. I will simply not accept that. You're never too old. Old is a number. I know people that are old that are 40 years old or less. On the other hand, I know people that are 82 and a half. That can do everything. So don't give me that. The other part is that everything is possible. Absolutely everything. And me with grade 3 and failing grade 7 3 times, I'm a very, very good writer. I'm very good with numbers. The rest, I'm not all that good at. And I say ADHD is a superpower. That's what I know it is. It's not attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. No, it's not a disorder. It's a superpower. And I believe that. And then I have an obligation to everybody that could be suffering through it, potentially like you did, like I did, to tell that story as soon as I can to the broadest public as possible. And that basically is my objective.
I love it, and I have to tell you that's my objective now. I'm a bit behind you in the book writing. I'm almost there. The working title of my book is called ADHD Un-Shamed. 100 ADHD Success Stories.
I like it.
The words you just used sum up what I'm trying to do, which is what you're doing, which is having the conversation, putting stories behind our experiences so that others who are challenged, who are suffering, who are confused, who are feeling awkward and feeling different, that they can read that it's not just them. They're not alone. There are others. May they pick up your book and say, hey, you're talking to me. May they pick up my book and say, hey, I'm talking to them.
And the frequency of occurrence, Stuart, is much, much, much higher than anybody ever anticipated. I believe it is probably close to 20% of the population. I believe. And that applies to males and females alike. And, and there is no question about it. I did 3 podcasts about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. One of them was ADHD. The other 2 here said they have never told anybody, but they think they are. And this happens to me over and over and over and over again, and that will happen more. And if we can help the process, that's why I like it so much, having interaction with you. If we can help the process of them saying, first and foremost, let it not be feeling that you are, that it is a medical disease or that it is a distraction. It isn't. It's a superpower. Now, the other one that I was not that you mentioned, when I talked to my doc initially, and we confirmed that I was ADHD when I was 62, then another 5 years later, I went back to him again, and I said, should I get some medicine because I've been checking it out and people are on medicine. So he gave me Adderall, 0.20 or something like that. I tried 3 pills, and after that I said, no, it doesn't do nothing for me, and I don't really want it. I still have them in my drawer here. The date is January 2008, and they're still sitting in my desk drawer, 97 pills in a bottle. I don't take anything.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that people should or shouldn't. For some it may work, for others it doesn't. But for me, I like it the way it is, or I feel comfortable with what it is.
It's a very individual decision to make.
Correct. I agree.
Like I'm a certified ADHD life coach, and I deal with people of all ages, of all walks. And some take meds, some do not. Unfortunately, what I have learned, John, is that a lot of times the medical community give a prescription that really doesn't fit, could be too high a dose, too low a dose, the wrong, because there are different kinds of meds.
Yeah.
And therefore somebody has a bad experience right out, they swear them off and they never go back. For me, it's methylphenidate, which is Ritalin, the brand,
right.
Very low dose, and I use it strategically. I know if I'm feeling a little unfocused, now's a good day.
You know your body, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a toolbox of things that I do if I'm feeling unmotivated, if I'm feeling unfocused, or I have things that I do, mainly physical stuff, or meditating, or going outside and getting some fresh air. There are things we do to get the dopamine flowing.
Exactly. Yeah. No. And
you too. You have.
Yeah, and I like that you talk about it, because I usually say, I'm not saying that somebody should or shouldn't, but it's all individual, and whatever works well. But I just wanted to mention that was involved with me, and and that what is interesting about it, in a sense, is that I still have, believe it or not, this is unbelievable. Driven to Distraction, that book. I lost it for about, I don't know how many years. A week and a half ago, we found it. My wife, this sounds typical ADHD. You will say, I can relate to that. So I have an office in Victoria as well, where I spend the weekends. And I was looking for another book, and then my wife was going through my bookcase, the lowest area. And she said, oh, Driven to Distraction is here. And I said, oh, okay. And then she said, is this the one you're looking for? I said, it's an old one. I said, oh my God, you found it. Oh my God. And I got the book, opened the book, there it says in Dutch. Now I finally, oh my God.
Wow.
Can you believe it? 1997. January 1997. And so all of this combined, and our interaction that we have today, which I think is fabulous, shows me a couple of things to it. Is that, yes, there is more than us, and you already know that, and I know that. But now, where do we go from here? And I say it's just at the beginning. The more you write about it, the more I write about it, the more we talk about it, the more we interact with other people around the world, the better. And I think next week I have another podcast, I think, with somebody that is very, very active in this as well. I interviewed the Kathy from Eugene, Oregon. Okay, you know her?
Oh, Katie, I do. I know Katie.
Yeah. So she was fabulous. About a week or 2 weeks ago, it's on. If you looked at my podcast, I do.
I have. I watched your podcast with Katie.
Okay, good.
I listened to it. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, excellent. So before we end, so anything else that come to mind for you? Let me. Sorry, interrupt. I want to stay in touch with you. No question about that. We have to
Same.
stay in touch. There's no question about
Yes.
that. So anything else that comes to mind, what else can we do together? What else can we, I will keep you informed on the things that I'm doing. We're going to go on the internet, much more proactive, and do all those kind of things.
John, I hope you will honor me with an interview for my book so that we can shed light on more of your story, your defining moments, your discovery, your walk. Because the purpose of my book, just like yours, is to give hope to the hopeless, to give some confidence to those who are feeling low. So
Yeah.
if I can share your story and it's meshed in with these other stories, I think you would lend me a tremendous asset to help inspire others.
There is a commitment. We will do that. Let me know when you want to do that, and coordinate it with Scott, and then from there and then we go. So I'm excited about it. Look forward to it.
I am too.
And all I can say, Stuart, it's amazing to have met you. We will stay in touch. The podcast will be online as early as no later than tomorrow morning. And it was a pleasure meeting you and sharing our so similar life backgrounds. And we look forward to staying in touch. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for being there.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Take care.